earnings from UBA Group and Transcorp grab the headlines as Oando, Nigeria notifies the market on plans to delist from both Lagos and Johannesburg stock exchanges, putting the market week into perspective for me. Right now, as a market professional, a licensed dealer, and CEO at Carrier Asset Management, Johnson Chukwu. But first, you're looking at the earnings from UBA. 2022 financials coming through. Gross earnings reading 29.2% better at 853.2 billion naira. Total assets roughly 11 trillion, and profit after tax up by 43.5%. That's 170.2 billion naira. United UBA Group operating in a number of African countries, including the Middle East, the United States, with an operating license also in the United Kingdom. Now, we got Johnson Chukwu in to look at the market week. We'll talk about those numbers earlier. Johnson Chukwu, thank you so much for joining us from Carrier Asset. Let's start with the ISA. How important is this piece of securities market legislation replacement that we have in the first one since 2007?
Well, Boston, it's actually gladdening that we've eventually revised the Investment and Securities Act, given the fact that it's 16 years old, and we've seen a lot of advancement in technology, advancement in market practice, advancement in knowledge, advancement in products and services currently operating in the market, that we are not captured in the last review or the last revision of the Investment and Security Act that was in 2007. So this new ISA is going to has factored in a lot of the current market developments. And I think that was why it became more compelling that we had to revise that act almost 16 years after it was last passed.
But what are the next steps as far as the new ISA is concerned? Of course, the House of Reps passed it late last year. The Senate just passed it. What's the next steps? What would it mean for the investment market moving forward?
Well, once the president signs it into law, it becomes an act. It becomes a law. And a couple of things that are contained in that act will bring a lot of improvement in the market. One of which is the recognition of crowdfunding. That is the recognition and that set of issuers beyond what we currently obtain in the market. So, and we know that crowdfunding has become the norm in most economies in the world, and has actually found its way into the Nigerian economic space. So, but it's not currently recognized. So the new act will recognize crowdfunding. Another factor is as it relates to protection of investors. The act made provision for 10 years of jail sentence for those involved or promoting Ponzi schemes, that is pyramid schemes. And that will give a lot of investors some level of confidence that any product that it's offered in the market will be devoid of, will not be Ponzi scheme, because with such stiff penalty, I believe that a lot of people will desist from such nefarious product offering. So there are several things. It's bringing in commodity trading into the market. There is a provision for commodity trading, a new section for commodity trading, and warehousing receipts, which will be traded on the exchange. And that will also help us develop further the financial market and develop our commodities market. So there are several provisions in that act that, when it's signed into law, will help us deepen the market, improve on and investors' protection, as well as allow for the admission of new issuers and new products into the market.
Interesting, this legislation. I'm sure we're going to have days, weeks, and months ahead to go over it as soon as Mr. President signed it, and we'll begin to look at various details of it. But thank you very much for giving us your first word on this new legislation, a very important milestone in Nigeria's recent market history. Thank you. Let's talk about Oando. Oando, Nigeria is giving the market notification to do a minority shareholders buyout, 7 naira 7 kobo for shareholders in Nigeria, whatever exchange rate that means for those in South Africa, because it's listed on the GSC and looking to go private. What's your outlook on Oando going forward from here?
Well, we have most recognized that Oando has gone through series of corporate governance challenges, has come under a number of regulatory action, and clearly, Oando may say that they have not so much enjoyed the benefit of listing, other than the periods they came to raise money in the market, capital in the market. And with all the challenge they've gone through with regulations locally, with shareholders conflict, I think what they want to do is become a private company, so that they will manage their corporate affairs or corporate governance affairs outside the purview of the public. And again, you also recognize that Oando has largely divested itself of its retail outlets. Oando sold its retail operations to NNPC, and that means Oando is focusing on other aspects of oil and gas in business that may not so much require coming to the market to raise fresh capital. And so, one, if he has no compelling need for fresh capital; two, if he has had this number of regulatory challenges, so it makes sense for it to go private.
The public offer that Oando did back in 2000 and around 2004 thereabout was done at about 45 naira per share. Now it's going to do a buyout of minority shareholders at 7 naira 7 kobo.
Well, we all agree that Oando has not been a good investment instrument in the market. We've seen, like I said, he has gone through a lot of regulatory breaches. He has gone through a lot of conflicts involving shareholders. All this had negative impact on the company. The company, we also have to know that the company has been restructured multiple times. With the ownership structure, not necessarily the ownership structure, the governance structure, the company going into subsidiaries and some of the subsidiaries not being listed. So it has gone through, in summary, it has gone through a lot of changes in terms of corporate structure. And in terms of earnings, it has not been able to meet the expectations based on its projections when it came to the market to raise money. So there are investments in equities that may have lost value on a permanent basis, and Oando seemed to be one of those instruments. If you look at Oando before the announcement, okay, Oando was trading at even about 5 naira 40 kobo. So even this, the 7 naira is more than, it's a huge premium on the market offer or the market price of Oando.
Okay, let's say goodbye to Oando. Let's begin to say goodbye to Oando as a listed company. But Sterling Bank is on trading suspension on the NGX because he's looking to finalize his holding structure plans. Give me your future forward on this bank. What is it for investors? What is the need for the banks and for the bank and investors in general?
Well, I think what they want to do is adopt the approach that many of the big banks have adopted. First Bank has adopted the holdco company approach. Access Bank has adopted the holdco approach. GT Bank has adopted the holdco approach. Basically, what they do is allow them to run their subsidiaries under a group structure. Have some shared services that help them minimize their costs. Because those shared services are not duplicated or replicated in all the subsidiaries. So it allowed for optimization of costs and ultimately also helps the company to focus the units or the individual businesses to focus on their core areas of competence. So I think we want to mine the benefit of having multiple products and multiple businesses under one roof or under one group.
Great. So we've got UBA earnings and Zenith Bank for you. I'm sure these are two of Nigeria's big banks. I'm sure you've got your fingers in both of them. Both of them are paying dividend very handsomely on both sides. So it's time for you to smile, at least for the month end, as it were. You're the CEO, group CEO at Career Asset Management, so you got something aside your salary. Give me your take on these two banks. Give me a few thoughts on UBA and on Zenith.
Well, let's start from UBA. UBA had a very good year. UBA top line, they had an increase about 20, over 20%, I think 26% on their interest income and just about 12% increase in their interest expense. So they had an improvement on their net interest income about 19%, almost 20%. If you look at the bottom line, they also had about 19% increase in profit after tax. So their cost of credit, particularly for provision for non-performing loans, was also quite low, just about 43 billion. Unfortunately, that's not the same story with Zenith Bank. Zenith Bank did well in the top line, but unfortunately, Zenith is also facing some pressure, competitive pressure. If you look at their interest expense jumped above the increase in interest income, which means they are beginning to face pressures on deposit mobilization, and they had to pay more for deposits. But the challenge that Zenith had in the outgone year was in terms of payment costs. That's cost of credit, where it had more than about 105% increase in payment cost from about 60 billion to about 123 billion, and that affected its bottom net profit before tax. Again, it also had a sharp increase in tax liability. So that led, for the first time in a long period, Zenith Bank having a decline in profit after tax, about 1.5% decline. And they also decline in earnings per share from about 778 to about 714 naira per share. So, but if given that Zenith Bank is still giving a dividend earnings per share of over 7 naira per share, that's still an impressive performance. It's still above the performance of competitors in the market, because even with the performance of UBA did not achieve that level of earnings per share.
All right, great. Thank you so much. It's great having you on the show tonight. As always, it's a Friday. Lay back and enjoy the weekend. Thank you so much, Johnson Chukwu, CEO, Carry Asset Management. We appreciate your market drill down analysis. Let's get together in the month of April. Thank you. Have a great weekend.